I'm going to read a poem. It's called Times Square. Now, I wrote this because some of you may know that there's a contest every year now by the Poetry Society of America where you write a poem about Times Square. So this is mine. I didn't win, but this is my poem. But the way it's spelt is Time''S, Times Square, so as in it belonging to time. Times Square. Times Square because the world marches through. Times Square because the kissing goes on and on. Times Square because a billboard's mouth blows smoke rings as it did in 1952 when my father brought me here, and the rings drifted above us like vapid donuts, like winged bagels, like clouds. Times Square because a glass ball drops into a sea of people and the year turns just like that, as if they were catching time itself and tossing it back and forth like a beach ball. Times Square because history is made here, but not a tank has ever appeared, or an armored car or a regiment of soldiers intent upon shooting anyone. Times Square because the sun never sets and lights surge and fountain above us, spraying us like an electric waterfall. Times Square because it isn't a square, but a triangle. Times Square because pickpockets and conmen and whores make a living fleecing the vast, untamed animal of the crowd. Times Square because it's smack in the middle of a metropolis, the hub of a clock, with the Empire State Building for an hour hand. Times Square because the moon hangs its sickle above it every night, wearing a white shroud, though no one ever sees, no one cares. Times Square because the blasts of taxis play an organ tune, a cement calliope, a sidewalk marimba with a salsa beat. Times Square because all roads lead not to Rome, but to Times Square, the myriad spokes of the interstate highway system converging on a single spot. Times Square because everyone you've ever known, back to your great-grandparents, has stood here looking up like you, feeling small and alone and alive, even at midnight, even in the rain. Times Square because the police buzz around it like blue flies with their little stinger batons looking for trouble. Times Square because a bird never sang here and nothing changes and everything changes and a man wearing a Viking helmet stands in the center and is replaced by a cowboy in his underwear who's replaced by a junkie with his veins full of death who's hauled away and replaced by a mime dressed as the Statue of Liberty. Times Square because the world's numbers stream overhead in a great accounting that never stops flowing and never adds up. Times Square because the news of the world breaks over our heads like a neon wave, an eternal bulletin, an annunciation. Times Square because Jews and Baptists and Sufis, mullahs and Shinto priests, Catholics and Quakers, Buddhists and Sikhs, atheists and crazy prophets enter it like a shrine and leave it enlightened, leave it blessed. Times Square because the latest hotshot gets his mug shot plastered titanically high, gazing down at us with an Olympian sneer. Times Square because pizza joints, hot dog vendors, pretzel kings, hash brown artists, short order maestros, deep fry wizards, and coffee queens know of that hunger which is bottomless as Times Square. Times Square because time doesn't exist here, but circles the square, Euclidean and endless, the destination and crossroads of a dream.